Welcome to the Between Stories, a series where I take you into the in-between chapters that echo through everything you hear on the show. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Between Stories. So awe has been on my mind, especially since our last episode with Kim Nolan, and she talked about awe so beautifully and spectacularly. Okay, I have been not stressed, overwhelmed. That's the right word. I love making this podcast, like truly more than anything. It's the greatest thing I get to do. So thank you for letting me do that. And it has been like so overwhelming. I just like cannot keep up with the production schedule. It's just too much content. So we are switching to making the main episodes every other week and then doing one of these types of stories in the weeks in between. So that's all I can do right now. But I'm sharing this because I one night was feeling so overwhelmed. I felt like sick. Have you ever had that? It was like the middle of the night and I was still editing. And so I was like, oh my God, I need to take a walk or something. So I went outside, this is like midnight, and took a walk just around the block. And all of a sudden I was like, wait, what was the how-to this week? It was look up at the sky. So I literally I just like move my gaze upward as I'm walking. And holy shit, it worked, you guys. Like there weren't even stars in the sky. You can't even see them. There was like clouds, but like, oh my God, my stress would calm down. And then I would like come back and just think about what I had to do when I got back. And like, then the stress came back and I would look up and I could feel it go down. And I was like, this is wild. Just feeling this vacillation as I changed my gaze. Awe is no joke. It really can reduce stress. They weren't kidding when they researched that. That is a real thing. So it has been working for me. All right. So this story, quick heads up, it gets a little introspective, maybe in a weird way. I don't know. This is one of those stories that's almost hard to describe without like flattening it. But that's one of the things that's so overwhelming about awe, right? It suspends you in the moment. And sometimes you spend years after trying to put words to it. That's honestly what I was attempting to do here. I don't know if I succeeded. When I have shared this experience, it is wild how many people will then say, oh my God, I felt that too. I know what that's like too. Like, I think we all know this feeling. We just don't always know what to call it. This week, I'm calling it awe. So here's a story about awe and what happens when you try to share it with someone else. All right, thanks for being here. There's a certain kind of hesitation when you share a place that matters to you. That was me. 6 miles into the Sierra. We were visiting California, one of those dry stretches of time split between borrowed sublets. I had first learned the ways of the backcountry in this place as a teenager, when I tagged along with a friend's family. Her dad showed me how to pitch a tent, use a camping stove, pack a bear canister. He woke us before dawn so we wouldn't miss it. We hiked up the ridge in the dark, and I stood there with them as the whole granite basin slowly turned pink. It was the first time I'd ever seen the sun rise like that. I kept coming back, year after year, season after season, after breakups, new jobs, leaving cities I'd outgrown. Something about the scale of it seemed to make things make sense. This place had become so familiar in my life, sacred even, though I'd never say that out loud. And on the hike in with him, there was a moment somewhere in the switchbacks where I started to worry if I'd said too much about it. It's that weird type of anxiety when you hand someone a feeling and realize you can't control what it becomes for them. You know those moments where we question if we overhype something? And then we have to watch the person, slightly disappointed, tell us, yeah, it's great. Awe doesn't always translate. And perhaps something in me had pinned too much on the idea that it might. We reached the top just before golden hour. From that edge, the whole canyon dropped away. It was that late summer kind of light that doesn't just fall, it leans. Across the valley, it pressed into the stone at an angle, lit the granite walls from beneath. Booming waterfalls spilled quietly in the distance, thread-like from this height. The last of the sun's rays hit the hard granite and made it glow like bone. As he looked out, I saw it in his eyes as he stared out in silence. I knew that stillness. I'd felt it myself, stood right in that spot, trying to make sense of scale, of time, of space. As the last light drained out of the sky, 5 planets rose slowly above the western horizon. As the stars came out, the sky got denser, not darker. The longer I stared, the more it filled in. Not just the obvious constellations, but dimmer stars behind them, and fainter ones behind those. My eyes kept adjusting like I was falling deeper into some kind of dimension. I realized in a moment there were so many pixels of stars, there was no black in the sky. Just depth, just distance, just light. The Milky Way blanketed the night, like someone had pressed their hand into the sky and left an indentation. We stood there for a while before hiking back to our tent in the thick of the starry night. A few days later, we were home, and a phone call murmured from the other room, just background noise, until I overheard him say, "Yeah, Yosemite is a life-changing place." Sometimes I think we try to protect ourselves from disappointment by holding back our awe. Maybe we're afraid others won't get it, that we'll be met with blank stares or polite nods. But I wonder, what do we lose when we do that? Every time I come back here, it rearranges the scale of things. Like the part of life that gets too loud gets pulled back into proportion. Now I get to climb here, ascending the same spires I once stared at from above, from below, from a distance, on that evening years ago. I follow friends up granite spires rising from the valley, jamming my hands into cracks that shift color with the sun. I wonder what it is about this place, how a landscape can become a part of you. Is it the experience of pure, unadulterated awe? Something inherent in the fabric of human existence? I wonder if this is what people mean when they talk about transcendence. Because I now know that it wasn't just me who felt it. It was my friends years ago when we stood on the same ridge in silence. It was him from up there looking out for the first time. It's my climbing partners as we top out at sunset, watching the landscape spill into gold. And I imagine it's the same as so many who have come before us and who will come after. So that is a story about awe. It's also a story about vulnerability. The kind of thing where you care about something else, you want somebody else to feel it too, which is kind of an unfair expectation to them, right? Like, you can't have an expectation that someone feels anything, but it's kind of like that quiet hope that they might, because if they do, then they'll see you. And we want to be seen by people. I think that's what that was about. We all know what it's like in one way or another to have some vast experience and to want to share that with somebody we care about. Something that changed us, moved us, made us think. You tell them about that and you hope they engage. That alone can be a form of this sort of vulnerability in a way. Hoping they'll kind of get it or feel something the way you did. Maybe it's like some film that really moved you, or I know people who've shared books with their partner and just been like, hey, like I really like, I hope you like it too, right? And then there's this anxiety of like, what if I hand them this thing that impacted me and it kind of falls flat and they're just like, cool. That's cool. I don't really want to read that piece. I don't have time. But here's this thing I'm learning in this work I'm doing with hope. Emotions like awe, they're not just kind of nice. I think they're pretty essential. Like, we stop being human when we stop having the ability to feel things deeply. And we don't have to be people who are like the vastness of everything. Oh my God, I feel it everywhere, right? But it's just that ability to go a little bit deeper than we do in our everyday lives. I think awe in particular is one of those emotions that reliably makes us feel small, but like in a good way. It has this wild ability, I think, to kind of dissolve the boundary between ourself and the world in a way that's very powerful. And that shift in perspective can be incredibly meaningful, I think. And if you listen to the last episode with Dr. Kim Nolan, she talks about the power of awe, and we also talk about the science of awe. It is something quite profound, which is kind of the whole point, right? Especially when we're dealing with a world that has so much uncertainty. If we have tools that have the ability to make us feel a little more interconnected, a little more of a sense of belonging, a little less stressed, a little more generous to each other, then I think that's worthwhile. I think too, when we think about communication, I think so often we try to convince people with facts. I mean, literally the last, 4 episodes talk about the fact that logic isn't the most effective way to always persuade people. It's actually often the least effective way. It's feeling. And even people who like aren't super emotional people who are like, "Oh, I'm rational. I'm not that emotional." I get that. A lot of those people are my friends. Love those people. And they're also highly emotional beings. Like literally the act of being human is incredibly emotional. But I think in the moments we're really struggling, the things that crack us open are often not rationality. It's the feeling of smallness that tells you you belong somewhere. And I think right now a lot of us are just trying to figure out how we can belong somewhere. All right. Thanks for being here. I will see you in the next episode.